Dark Curse, a short horror story by Vahid Sajadafar.
In a corner of the town, a deserted house with creaky, rusty doors stood ominously. No one dared to approach it, knowing it was the site of gruesome murders that even the police had no clue about. I opened my eyes. Darkness. The smell of blood. The sound of shallow, quick breaths. The pounding of my heart echoed in my ears. I didn't know where I was, I just knew I shouldn't move. The footsteps grew closer, the heavy steps of boots on the wooden floor. He was here. I couldn't see his face, but I could feel his presence. It was heavy, his breaths cold and shallow. His hand gently traced a sharp blade across his palm. Drops of blood slowly dripped to the floor. Time seemed to slow down. I had to think, had to find a way out, but how? Voices swirled in my head, whispers saying, "You can't escape." I closed my eyes. Vague memories surfaced. A man with hollow eyes and a smile that showed no emotion. A hand slowly tightening around my throat. I couldn't breathe. I tried to scream, but no sound came from my throat. He smiled and said, "Fear is my sustenance." I opened my eyes. He was gone. Only silence and darkness remained. I held my breath, I had to get out of there. Slowly, I stood up, step by step moving towards the door. My breathing echoed in my ears. I opened the door, the sound of the rusty hinge echoed again. Outside, the air was cold, a chill that made me shiver. But nothing had changed. Every step I took, I ended up back at the same house. It was as if I was trapped in an endless loop. The sound of laughter filled my ears. He was back. I realized that I couldn't escape this place. The footsteps grew closer again. He knew I was still here. The heavy steps came closer and closer until suddenly, the door behind me burst open, and a blinding light filled my eyes. I looked back. The man with hollow eyes and a mysterious smile stood there. He smiled and said, "This is just the beginning." The door slammed shut, and I was plunged into darkness. My story wasn't over yet, it was just the beginning. Was there a way to escape? Could I break free from this deadly loop? Only time would tell. Breathless and trembling, we stood in the dark, empty street. The cold bit into our skin, and a temporary sense of relief washed over us. But I knew this wasn't the end. The shadow that weighed on my mind wouldn't let me rest. The girl, her eyes filled with fear and despair, looked at me. Probably, this girl was another victim of the cruel man. I told myself I had to be strong, had to find a way. I said to her, "We need to get to somewhere safe. Maybe the police or someone who can help." We broke the door and ran away. We ran towards a police station. The streetlights flickered, and every little noise made us jump. Finally, we reached the station. We went inside, shouting for help. The officer looked at us in surprise and said, "What happened?" With anxiety and excitement, we told him everything. The officer, looking concerned, nodded, and said, "We need to investigate this. Please stay here." They led us to a room where we waited. But I had a strange feeling. Everything seemed unnaturally calm. Whispering voices came from the walls. The girl looked at me and said, "Do you feel it? He is here too." Suddenly, the lights went out. Total darkness. The sound of heavy footsteps, shallow breaths. In the dark, a dim light from a distant window caught my eye. We had to move towards it. I grabbed the girl's hand and ran towards the light. The footsteps grew closer and closer. We ran through rooms and winding corridors. He was here again. We found the corpse of the police officers in different locations of the station. It felt like the walls were closing in on us. We reached the window, and with all my strength, I opened it. We jumped out and landed in a dark, narrow alley. We ran again, as fast as we could, without looking back. His breathing was still close. My heart pounded faster with every step. Finally, we reached an old, abandoned building. We opened the door and rushed inside. In the dark heart of the building, I felt that the story had reached its climax. The sound of heavy footsteps and sinister laughter grew closer. He entered the building. His face became visible in the dim light. The man with hollow eyes and a smile that showed no emotion. I looked at the girl. We had one chance. We had to confront him. I picked up a knife from the floor and moved towards him. He approached slowly. My heart raced faster and faster. I held my breath and lunged at him with all my might. But he was quicker. He struck me, and I fell to the ground. The girl screamed and ran towards me. As I closed my eyes, I felt like everything was ending. But suddenly, a loud sound and a sharp pain in my side. When I opened my eyes, I saw the girl had stabbed the knife into the killer's heart with all her strength. He fell, his empty gaze fixed on me. Dark shadows rose from the walls and engulfed everything. My vision blurred, and the last thing I saw was his sinister, mysterious smile. He might be dead, but his shadow still lives in the darkness.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.